The grand archives of St. Anselm University smelled of old paper, dust, and ozone. At midnight, the air was still and heavy. Evelyn Rourke, the chief archivist, a slight woman with a silver bun and thick, magnifying spectacles, was seated at her desk, marking up an accession ledger. 3 figures, all students, burst in. They moved with the frantic, overconfident energy of young people who thought they were clever. The leader, a history major named Liam, held a flashlight and a heavy length of cable. "We're sorry about this, Dr. Rourke," Liam whispered, his voice shaking despite his attempt at authority. "We just need the key of Anselm. Tell us which volume it's hidden in, and we leave you alone." Evelyn set her pen down slowly. "The key of Anselm is a myth, dear boy, a romantic footnote in a 19th century manuscript. Don't lie," Liam hissed, gesturing to his accomplice, Maya, who started toward the central isla towering maze of ancient wooden stacks, housing irreplaceable folios and maps. "We know it's hidden inside the Chronicles of the Iron Duke. Just tell us where you keep the master copy, and we won't have to tie you up." Evelyn looked genuinely disappointed, but not scared. "Well, you've spoiled my evening. I was just about to catalog the new acquisition from the Assyrian wing." The disappointment was real. She cherished the solitude of the late hours, a time when the archive felt less like a job and more like a carefully controlled laboratory. The third student, Mark, nervously grabbed Evelyn's arm and tried to pull her out of her chair. "I wouldn't do that, Mark," Evelyn said, her voice now completely level and devoid of all feigned frailty. It was the tone of a system operator issuing an essential life-or-death warning. "In fact, none of you should move your feet from their current positions." Liam, standing 5 feet from the main stacks, scoffed. He was relying on the classic intruder's playbook: rapid entry, focused, objective, and psychological dominance over the perceived civilian guard. "We broke your magnetic locks, we bypassed your motion sensors, and we disabled your CCTV. Your security is decades old, ma'am. We checked the schematics in the old campus planning documents." Evelyn smiled, a small, tired, but deeply professional smile that contained 40 years of cold, hard engineering logic. "Of course it is, dear boy. I designed it that way." She removed her spectacles, tucking them neatly into her breast pocket. The removal was a subtle sign of transition, discarding the persona of the meek scholar. "Before I was an archivist, I was Dr. Evelyn Rourke, lead engineer for the R&D division of Sentinel Systems. My final project, and the one I came here to personally oversee for the rest of my career, was the complete overhaul of St. Anselm's security framework. When Sentinel Systems won the bid 20 years ago, I insisted on designing a system that didn't just deter intrusion, but actively used the archive's core characteristics, sits weight, and immobility as the central defense." She lifted a trembling hand, the trembling now revealed to be a practiced gesture of control. Not fair, and pointed toward the book Maya was reaching for, the gigantic dust-covered asterisk Chronicles of the Iron Duke asterisk. "You see those books, Maya? They weigh, on average, 8 to 14 pounds apiece. The shelves are not bolted to the floor. They are floating. Every single shelf in this room, all 40,000 linear feet of them, is mounted on a piezoelectric sensor array. They are incredibly sensitive, designed to measure changes in pressure equivalent to a grain of sand." Liam paled, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. He was a history major. He knew the weight of these volumes, the sheer, unimaginable mass contained in the central repository. "What are you saying? A pressure plate?" "We walked on the tiles. It's far more sophisticated than a pressure plate," Evelyn continued, standing up slowly, but with the controlled movements of a physicist performing a crucial experiment. "This entire room is one massive interconnected circuit, a high-resolution, gravitational map that calculates the aggregate mass of the inventory in real. The system isn't looking for intruders based on heat or movement, which can be masked. It's looking for anomalous inventory displacement, the removal of a single key piece of mass." She explained the meticulous process she had followed for 2 decades. "Every book, every scroll, every map in this library has been digitally logged, weighed, and mapped in 3 dimensions. The system knows that Stack 4, Shelf 7, contains precisely $4,521.80 pounds of paper and wood. When you opened that external door, the system registered a collective weight increase of $468 pounds, which is U3, your gear, and the moisture on your jackets. That triggered a low-level alert on my internal console. But the system only initiates a full, irreversible security response when the mass distribution of the inventory changes beyond a 1-pound tolerance. The archive operates on perfect equilibrium. It is a scale that must always balance." She pointed to the spot on the wooden floor where Mark was standing, still nervously clutching her arm. "Right now, Liam and Maya, your feet are resting exactly on the system's pre-calculated weight baseline. You came in through the service corridor, which I'd already calculated was the most likely point of entry based on the old schematics. I anticipated this. Therefore, 10 minutes ago, I personally removed 3 volumes of Asterisk, the Dictionary of American Antiquities Asteriska, combined mass of exactly $174.50 from the adjacent desk. Her eyes focused on Mark with chilling precision. Mark, you are currently exerting exactly $174.50 of force onto the tile that is compensating for the dictionaries I removed. Your body is the exact, deliberate, and necessary counterweight I needed to avoid triggering a low-level anomaly warning immediately upon my desk mass shifting. You, specifically, are the reason the lockdown hasn't begun yet. Liam looked down at his feet, then back at the massive, silent stacks. His skin crawling with the sudden, terrible realization that his weight was literally holding the system in precarious balance. The Archives' Central Security Unit, which I call the Librarian, is located beneath my desk. Evelyn continued, the rhythmic tapping of a distant clock her only accompaniment. The Librarian is constantly pulling the piezoelectric field. If Maya removes that asterisk chronicles of the Iron Duke asterisk a weight displacement of roughly 12 pounds, the system will register an instantaneous, critical mass shift on the secondary array, exceeding the 1 pound tolerance for displacement. That triggers the asterisk mastic protocol. Asterisk. What's that? Maya whispered, her hand pulling back instantly, as if the air around the book were electrified. Evelyn smiled grimly, but without humor. It's the reason the air smells of ozone. The mastic protocol is not a digital countermeasure. Your magnetic locks and jammer are meaningless against it. It is a physical, irreversible lockdown executed by the building itself. The ozone you smell is from the high-tension arc welders concealed in the doorframes. All internal doors, including the one you just reached, will instantly weld shut with a high-strength epoxy resin applied by automated micro-injectors, making escape impossible for at least 8 hours. She let that sink in, the image of being permanently sealed within the towering, dark maze. And because the air conditioning system is vented entirely through the floor and the base of the shelving units, the mastic protocol will also inject a highly effective, non-lethal, aerosolized paralytic. It's an ether derivative. You'll be unconscious and trapped here, immobilized, until the city police department and the campus maintenance team cut you out. Likely sometime after lunch tomorrow, which will be wonderfully embarrassing for all of you. She pointed to the exit, now an unmoving steel door behind Liam. Your magnetic jammer is cute, but it's irrelevant. The moment you opened that door, the system registered a minute weight increase on the adjacent carpet fibers, meaning the inventory was at risk. The security process has already begun. The only reason the door hasn't sealed yet and the air vents haven't injected the paralytic is because I'm still standing here, perfectly counterbalanced, preventing the weight anomaly. I am the sole, manual, human override. Evelyn slowly extracted her arm from Mark's grasp, her motion so deliberate and slow it was agonizing. Mark froze, terrified to shift his own weight, realizing that his compliance was now the only thing keeping them from being chemically paralyzed and encased in resin. You came in here attempting to steal what you call the key of Anselm, an item you believe holds historical secrets. Evelyn continued, walking with excruciating slowness around her desk to the wall terminal, her movements carefully compensating for her mass, so the floor sensors remained satisfied. But the real secret of St. Anselm is the principle of irreplaceable value. I designed this system not to guard an object, but to guard the collective, catastrophic weight of history. Any attempt to remove any single volume risks destroying the entire equilibrium. She tapped a button on the terminal, a simple, gray console that looked completely innocuous. I have now alerted campus security and the city police that I am being held hostage inside the archives, she stated calmly. I did this by initiating a simple keystroke pattern on this proprietary terminal. This action, however, did not send a distress signal. It simply transmitted a signal that I am safe, but that the archive's internal conditions are nominally stable but require immediate investigation. The police will treat this as a high-risk situation because the Librarian system also informed them of the attempted magnetic lock bypass. Evelyn walked back toward the stunned students, her movements like Tai Chi, every step perfectly placed and compensated. Now, you have a choice. Stand perfectly still, exactly where you are, until the police arrive. Or make an unnecessary movement, a shift in stance, a twitch of a finger, or God forbid, an attempt to grab a bookend, become permanent roommates with the Assyrian acquisition. The only sound in the vast room was the heavy, rhythmic beat of their own frantic hearts, and the constant, subtle hum of the air conditioning system, which was moments away from becoming a toxic delivery system. Liam looked from the deadly calm of the elderly archivist to Mark, who was now weeping silently, terrified to even adjust his glasses. Maya was staring fixedly at the chronicles on the shelf, the prize now a trigger for their mutual destruction. Evelyn sat back down at her desk, picking up her pen. I suggest you choose stillness, gentlemen. The police will be far kinder to unmoving, paralyzed suspects than 2-3 individuals who caused $500,000 worth of structural damage and necessitated a hazmat cleanup. She then returned to her ledger, her hands steady, marking the next acquisition with a precise, dark ink line. The Grand Archives remained silent, massive, and perfectly balanced, a vast, complex scale, waiting for the slightest mistake. Evelyn Rourke, the quiet custodian, had turned the weight of history into an unbreachable fortress.